All right, well, this looks like we may have everyone who's going to join us this evening. So in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get this community meeting started. Thank you for joining us this evening, taking time out of your day. My name is Nolan Groce. I'm with Urban Design Partners, representing Dyer Marine on rezoning project number 1080608. Joining me this evening on the petitioning team are Will and Tatiana Dyer with Dyer Marine, Paul Pinnell with our office at Urban Design Partners, and Sarah Beeson with Alexander Ricks. The site is located at 840 Brawley School Road. Imagery on your screen shows the site as it exists today from Oak Tree Road. The rezoning petition requests to change the zoning of the property from CCM, conditional corridor mixed use, to CCC, conditional community commercial, for the development of a boat sales and services center. A few general housekeeping items before we get into the main presentation. We understand there are concerns of building aesthetics, buffers, and traffic flow. We plan to address these throughout the presentation, but encourage you to ask questions utilizing the chat feature. At the end of the presentation, we will go through the chat box and answer your questions. If additional information is requested, we're happy to follow up with you after the meeting. We have your email addresses via the registration. Once all questions in the chat box have been answered, we will open the meeting for attendees to unmute and ask additional questions. Please use the raise hand feature, which is found by clicking the reactions in meeting controls, then click raise hand. You will then be prompted to unmute. Now, we do have a large audience this evening, so please be patient as we unmute participants so they can ask their individual questions. If anyone has questions following the meeting, please reach out to us via phone or email. We're happy to meet with community members one-on-one as well at your request. With that being said, we'll jump into the meat of the presentation. Here you have an aerial of the site located at 840 Brawley School Road. The property consists of 4.15 acres located north of Brawley School Road, east of Oak Tree Road, and south of Fernbrook Drive. So a little bit of background information, why we're here this evening, what is zoning, what is the rezoning request? So zoning is the city's method of classifying land by usage. Listed on the screen are zoning districts and overlays in the town of Mooresville, such as CC, community commercial, CM, corridor mixed use, RLS, residential limited service, and RLI, residential low intensity. So in North Carolina, there are two types of rezoning petitions, what's known as a conventional request and a conditional request. So the type of rezoning we're proposed is a conditional rezoning. This has a site-specific plan, additional standards beyond what is required in the Unified Development Ordinance. It can limit uses allowed on the property. It has conditions of approval, site-specific conditions, whereas a conventional rezoning is more general. Instead of the conditional classification, we would be rezoning from CM to CC. So a development would just have to follow the Unified Development Ordinance, and then it could be approved. There would not be a site-specific vesting plan or additional conditions associated with it. So in the Unified Development Ordinance, there are several types of zoning districts, be it residential, mixed use, non-residential, and planned development and overlay districts. The site is currently zoned CCM. That is a conditional zoning corridor mixed use district. Now, this is from a previous entitlement when the property was annexed into the town of Mooresville in roughly 2001. You can see on the map, the site is highlighted purple for that conditional zoning district. In the area, there are numerous conditional zoning districts, as well as the neighborhood being residential low intensity. And to the east, you can see corridor mixed use and community commercial zoning districts. The large gray portion of your area is not currently annexed into the town of Mooresville. It's still in Iredell County. So that's the reason it is not associated with the town zoning district. Okay, so now that we've reviewed the types of zoning district, here's a quick comparison of the uses that are allowed within the current CM and proposed CC zoning districts. Now, both districts allow a variety of commercial, healthcare, retail, and service industry uses, such as animal care clinics, pet grooming, breweries, restaurants, and bars, as well as retail sales and services establishments such as hardware stores, department stores, and auto parts stores. Now, since those are permitted uses in the CM district, which is currently, the site is currently zoned, all of those uses could be developed on the property by right, meaning they would not go through the rezoning process. There would not be community meetings or additional standards. However, you can see on the far right-hand column, or excuse me, corner of your screen, there's a single column highlighted vertically and horizontal, and that's for the use of boat or RV sales and services. Now, I do want to specify we are focusing on the boat sales and services. That use is permitted in the CC district. However, it is not currently allowed in the CM district, which means we have to rezone for the property to be developed and used under that permitted use. A little bit of additional background information and planning knowledge. These are documents we review and consider when creating a rezoning plan. So first we have the One Mooresville Comprehensive Plan, which is a living document providing a policy framework that will guide Mooresville's decision-making in the near and long term. There's also the Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO. This simplifies and consolidates regulations that will guide Mooresville development into a single document and align standards with the One Mooresville Comprehensive Plan. There's also the Future Character and Land Use Map. The Future Character and Land Use Map designates character areas to guide growth and change in the community. And there are 12 character areas identified on this map. So let's take a look at that character map. You see we have a little excerpt from the One Mooresville plan showing the area of Brawley School Road and the parcel in particular identified as a mixed-use corridor. The intent is for this area to allow a mix of retail, office, commercial, and multifamily development. Building facade frontages should align and be brought toward the street, with parking in the side and rear, creating a pedestrian-friendly corridor. So the One Mooresville plan identifies this area as a commercial mixed-use corridor. So being the long-range plan identification with commercial and retail uses, you can see today that area is already exhibiting the long-range One Mooresville plan. Across Brawley School Road are Lake Norman Patio and Game, Swim Landscaping, and Lake Norman Small Engine. Across Oak Tree Road, there's Anytime Fitness and a large multi-use building with restaurants, shops, and offices. Abutting the property to the east is a commercial strip building, which is followed by a car wash, gas station, and boater's warehouse. So these are some existing commercial uses along the Brawley School Road corridor as they exist today. So there are numerous considerations to account for when designing a site and looking at site planning for rezoning or development plan. Existing site conditions, such as topography and grades, access points, and frontages. There's the Town of Mooresville Unified Development Ordinance. What regulations govern development on the site? whether it be setbacks, buffers, building height allowances. Community input, like we're doing this evening, engaging the public, having question and answers, making sure everyone's comfortable and understands what is being proposed. Entitlements. So what's already approved for the site as well as nearby parcels? What type of development could go on the site by right as a permitted use? Adjacent properties. What are current land uses and development trends in the area as we just looked at the commercial corridor? Pedestrian safety. Where to locate sidewalks and how to promote walkability. Vehicular traffic patterns. Where should we locate driveways? This site, for example, proposes entrances on Brawley School Road as well as Oak Tree Road. Green space and natural areas. So where are we providing for open space and tree save on site? How much of these are we providing? And are they going to be improved areas? So here's the rezoning site plan for rezoning project 108-06-08. I'm going to jump ahead quickly to a rendered site plan, which provides a little easier aesthetic than this plain white plan. Okay, so here is our rendered site plan for 840 Brawley School Road, proposing the use of boat sales and services. So proposed are a 36,000 square foot showroom and service building. The showroom will be at street level with service bays below grade, which will be accessed internally to the site. Each floor will contain approximately 18,000 square feet. Two ancillary storage buildings are also proposed fronting Oak Tree Road. They are shown at 3,600 and 4,200 square feet respectively. These will also be accessed internally to the site. 44 off-street parking spaces are provided as well. As I previously mentioned, there are driveways located both on Brawley School Road and Oak Tree Road. Given the existing traffic conditions, the driveway at Brawley School Road is proposed as a right-in, right-out movement. However, after coordination with the town staff, and NCDOT, the Oak Tree Road driveway is provided as a right-in only movement. So that means traffic will not be able to leave the site off of Oak Tree Road going north. They'll have to exit at the Brawley School Road driveway. Also, I'd like to mention that the boating business is seasonal. The peak time is summer, which is busy. It's the busiest time of the year, during which there would not be school traffic, so there's no competition. The hours of operation are also a little different, opening later at 9 o'clock. Plan north at the property line, you can see we'll be providing a 30-foot type A vegetated buffer along the existing residences. This consists of 5 canopy trees, 5 understory trees, and 40 bushes per 100 linear feet of frontage. Behind that, closer to the internal side of the site, will be a 6 to 8 foot screening wall, providing additional buffer for those existing residences. There's approximately 160 feet between the closest proposed building and residence at the northwest plan corner. The rezoning plan as shown currently exceeds open space and tree save requirements. We're committing to installing a 10-foot multi-use path along Oak Tree Road with a 6-foot planting strip. This will continue into a 5-foot sidewalk to be installed along Brawley School Road. And there's an improved open space shown and committed to at the corner of Oak Tree and Brawley. Timing wise, if the project is approved according to the schedule that we will show later in the PowerPoint presentation, moving into land development, we're estimating about a 6-month time span for full approvals. Here are some of our architectural site renderings. Here you can see the 10-foot multi-use path along Oak Tree Road, which will transition into the 5-foot sidewalk. The site will provide elevated planting and street trees along both road frontages and commits to providing improved open space at the corner, at the intersection. You're able to see the 2-story building with showroom at street level. Signage and flagpoles shown are conceptual and must be permitted by the town in accordance with the Unified Development Ordinance. Here we have a few more architectural renderings where you can see the below grade service center and storage buildings, which are going to be accessed internally to the site. This particular use does have additional conditions required in the Unified Development Ordinance. So those are that all servicing of boats or RVs shall occur within an enclosed building. Storage of boats shall only occur behind buildings. Storage of inoperable vehicles on the premise for parts or salvage is prohibited. And repaired boats shall not be stored or parked for more than 30 consecutive days. And here we have a few more zoomed in images showing the proposed improved open space at the corner of Brawley School Road and Oak Tree. Now moving into that timeline that I had previously mentioned, this evening, February 6th, we're holding our required petitioner community meeting. We're anticipating going to before the planning board at their March 12th, 2024 regular meeting. This would allow for a potential public hearing date of April 1st, 2024. Now we'll need to confirm this timeline with staff. There's always potential for deferrals whether it be at the planning board stage or the public hearing stage. When it comes time for a public hearing, town staff will send out mailing notifications, much like we did for this community meeting. They will also post notice signs on site to ensure that all neighbors and property owners in the area are aware of the upcoming public hearing. At this point, allow me to introduce the petitioners and owners of Dyer Marine, Will and Tatiana Dyer.
Hey, good evening.
We can hear you.
Perfect.
Oh, okay, you can see us too.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Will Dyer. This is my wife, Tatiana.
Hi, guys.
We purchased this business in Mooresville a little over a year ago, and knowing that both sales and service were separated, both sales and service are separated, we knew that we needed to find a better facility that was appropriate for the products that we sell and the business that we have that puts everybody under one roof. And we wanted to do it in a way that represents the type of product that we're selling, which is a luxury good. So we want to have a very nice facility, both for our customers and our community. We live down Brawley School off of McKendree, so we drive through this just about every day, and we are familiar with the traffic concerns there. And the benefit of the marine dealership is that it's not a very high traffic business, so there's not a lot of trips every day in and out of there. It's a lower volume business, and our hours don't conflict with morning school time, and our busy season is when school's out of session. We've come up with a beautiful building, we believe, and a great use of this site that should be a win-win. All of the boat merchandise and repair work is going to be either inside the building or behind the building. All the repair work will be done inside the building, but storage behind the building. So as you drive down the road, it's not going to appear to be the same as the other boat dealerships you may be used to seeing with just trailers and boats scattered all over the place. This will be a very tidy, professional facility and well kept. And we believe that is just more appropriate for the type products that we're selling. Okay.
All right. Thank you for that presentation and introduction of yourselves and your company.
Thank you.
So with that, ooh, if my slides don't freeze up on me, with that, we're happy to start answering questions. So as I mentioned at the start of the meeting, we're going to flow through the chat box, but due to the quantity of members in attendance this evening, we will not allow you to unmute on your own. If you'll use the raise your hand feature, we will go through and individually ask you to unmute. So I'm going to rewind back to our rendered site plan and start going through this chat box. Okay, so the first question we have comes from Stephanie Webb. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us and your question. Stephanie asked, what other options were considered to avoid additional traffic on Oak Tree? What elements and structures would be implemented to eliminate the ability to turn right onto Oak Tree from the site? So the first part, avoiding additional traffic on Oak Tree, the Oak Tree driveway is proposed as a right-in only. So I know it doesn't look that way in the rendering, but traffic will not be able to exit the site and make a right onto Oak Tree Road heading north. So when you make either a right off of Brawley School or a left, you would have to immediately turn into the site and not make it to the residential area. What elements or structures will be implemented to eliminate? So, sure, when we get into land development, we would have to coordinate with town staff and NCDOT staff to design that driveway to prevent vehicles to exit and make a right turn there. There's already the existing median preventing any traffic from making a left turn heading south, but we would also have to provide elements preventing a right turn movement out of the site, ensuring that it is a right-in only. Okay. Bill sent me a message. Bill Muckerman, thank you for your question. What is the blue proposed SCM? So that's a stormwater control measure. We're required to retain and detain. Retention and detention is what you hear in the stormwater world. Basically, we have to keep all of our stormwater on site. All of the impervious area that we add contributes to stormwater. That is the area we're allocating for that water to detain. We'll have to pipe it underground to the system where it will be caught and slowly released, cleaning it into the existing system. I know it looks large and it's a big blue looking pond, but that's what that's used for. Plan looks great. Thank you, Andrew. Another question from Stephanie. What is the estimated vehicle count on Oak Tree Road on peak days in the summer? What percentage increase does that represent? So I don't have per se peak trips per day, peak hour, traffic counts. We have done a parking study at this site. So by right, a service center this size would require 108 parking spaces. In order to reduce that to what is currently shown at 44 spaces, we provided an engineered parking study where we had an engineering consultant, a traffic engineer, measure the maximum parking ratio at a comparable site. And through that study, which has been submitted to town staff and approved, it showed that the maximum utilization on site would be 16 parking spaces at one time, with an average of 9 parking spaces utilized. So that may not specifically address your question, but it gives you an idea that this is a lower intensity use than it could be developed under its current zoning ordinance. But I'm happy to connect with you after this meeting, Stephanie, if you have additional questions or if you would like to talk about that. All right, John asked, how does one travel out of the site to eastbound Brawley? It's a good question. Thank you for that. So traffic will be required to exit on Brawley School Road heading west, making a right out of the site with the right in, right out only movements. Traffic would then be required if they wanted to head eastbound to make a U-turn. So there's several locations along Brawley that this could happen. There's left-hand turn lanes at Webfoot Road as well as Esquire Lane, as well as farther down, if they could not turn there, there's a traffic signal in front of Food Lion. It's important to point out that the trucks and traffic coming to the boat dealership are not your typical tractor trailers holding 6 to 8 boats at a time. 99% of the boats that are coming to this facility will be on a typical trailer that you would pull behind your SUV going to the boat dock. Okay, we've got another stormwater question. I'm happy to talk more about that later if you would like. Stephanie has another question. How can we better understand the relative noise created by this intended use? Sure. So let me jump to a possibly better slide. So this specific use requires all servicing to be done internal to the buildings. So you can see this bottom floor is the proposed service center. There'll be large garage bays, and all servicing will be done internally to the building, not outdoor in the potential laydown or parking areas. So that will mitigate some of the noise. The service center is also located farthest away from the existing residences along Brawley School Road. Also think it's important to point out that the servicing done at a center like this is predominantly electrical, cosmetic, working on upholstery, lights, bilge pumps, things like that. So you're not just going to hear engines roaring, motors running throughout the day. Okay, Eric asked, what other locations were considered and what drove the decision to rezone this location? I'm gonna have the Dyers come back on mute to answer the first part of that question, but I'll go ahead and hop on the second part of this. So what drove the decision to rezone this location? We go back to our uses slide. So in this far right image of table 4-1, the use permissions, you can see that boat sales and services is not a permitted use in the current CM zoning district. So in order to build and develop the site for that use, the property has to be rezoned. Will, if Tatiana, it looks like you're off mute. Can you speak to what other locations were considered?
Sure. We've, ever since we got here a year ago, we've looked at a lot of locations to try. We tried to be out by the interstate and were unable to find land there. We've tried other sites along Brawley, and the town was quick to say that it would not be feasible to do that there. And then, of course, there are various sites on 150 that could potentially be available, but I think we all know that the traffic there and the proposed construction, and frankly, even there is further away from a variety of public boat ramps. So we do have more of a central location, as opposed to just using Queens Landing all the time. We can access off McKendree and Stutz and have a less trafficy ride to the interstate should we have to go down south around the lake to service a customer's boat. So logistically, it works very well for us.
All right, thank you for that. It looks like this may be another question. If you're still off mute, let me double check. You are. So the next question comes from Elizabeth. Elizabeth asked, how many jobs will be created and are there any tax benefits to residents?
As far as the tax benefits to residents, we can't really speak to that. This is an existing business that employs over 25 people
Yeah,
currently.
thereabouts, yeah.
So, and they're local residents, as far as additional jobs created, I mean, that would be dependent upon the increase of business. Really, the ultimate goal is to get the two departments together on the same site. Because currently we're in two separate locations, about 8 minutes apart from each other in Mooresville. So as far as additional jobs created, it would just be dependent upon, I guess, the future of the business, really.
Thank you for that. And I mean, tax benefits, you could look at property tax that would be generated going from this site having an older existing residential home to a new Mastercraft boat dealership. All right, Kent asked, what is your lighting plan? How much light pollution will you add to the skyline? Sure, great question, understand it. At this point in the process, we're going through the rezoning phase. We generally would not get into the level of a development plan for a lighting plan until we're much farther along in the process at land development under review with the town. Any lights on site must meet Unified Development Ordinance standards, which would not allow additional light pollution. There are regulations on where light can go. It cannot reach off-site or off the property.
I can make a comment to this just as far as the plan. It's not lighting like you would think of at a car dealership where everything is on display all night long, trying to catch everybody's attention. A lot of the inventory is going to be inside the buildings, and what we would need lighting for in the rear is just security, so the cameras work. So we do not need display lighting on the property. We just need lighting so the cameras work.
And also at night, the lot's secured. We do not allow traffic to flow through the site after hours, just for inventory protection reasons. So we really don't need lighting any more than just to allow cameras to capture, to be able to capture footage.
Sure. All right, Gail, moving forward. Gail asked, why use oak tree? Keep all in and out traffic on Brawley. So since this property, it's a little unique. Let me jump back to the rendered site plan. So it's a unique site being at the intersection of Oak Tree and Brawley. Given that nature with multiple frontages, it makes sense to have some sort of through access, whether it be for trucks, drop-offs, deliveries, or people coming to shop and service their boat. Trying to be cognizant of traffic patterns and the existing developments to the north of the site along Oak Tree Road. Traffic will not be able to exit the site at Oak Tree and make a right turn. They will not be able to exit the site at all at Oak Tree Road. It is purely a right-in internal movement. Okay, let's see. So John asked a similar question. I believe that was touched on earlier about the left turn traffic on Brawley and how do you get back eastbound. Let's see if we have any new questions. Okay, Jim Lowry, please go into more detail on the 30-foot buffer. How reliable? Sure. So the 30-foot buffer is a standard in the Unified Development Ordinance. Let me jump back to our site plan. It's a little bit hard to see at the top center of the plan, but it shows kind of what I mentioned earlier, the 5 canopy, 5 understory, and 40 bushes per 100 linear feet, as well as a 6 to 8 foot wall behind the planting. So you have all of your plantings on the exterior of the site, and then more interior, you have the 6 to 8 foot wall. This is required as part of the development, abutting these residential communities. It's an ordinance requirement. We are committed to it on the site plan. So it will be installed should this rezoning be approved. Okay, our environmental impact, traffic accident statistics, water saturation studies completed. I'm not sure about some of those. However, we are taking into account traffic flows, existing traffic patterns with our design considerations. Environmental impact is always a consideration. We're accounting for stormwater on site as required through the state and local ordinances, and really trying to retain as much tree area as well. Natural trees, replanted trees, to make this a harmonious development at the corner of Brawley and Oak Tree.
Nolan, I think we would add to that, that's why we try to keep with the grade as much as possible. That's why the service department is underneath the showroom. So instead of building up the site to level it out and having a larger 1-story, it's effectively a 2-story, but more like a walkout basement at least from the Brawley School viewpoint, it's not a 2-story building.
Which keeps the site at its natural level for the most part. So a lot of natural tree saves that are there can just remain where we don't need to move them.
Thank you for that, Will and Tatiana. John asked, any hazard materials expected? Now, John, I'm assuming that means with boat servicing. Otherwise, through the construction development process, no, we would not expect any hazard materials through the land development process.
And as far as boat servicing, we're required to have secondary containment for anything that would, not be retained within the boat itself. It's generally not, it's not really a major concern in the marine repair world.
I would say oil changes, you'd have waste oil, which is all contained in own specialty containers, and a service comes by and collects that. As far as fuel goes, we're not gonna have any fuel dispensing on site. And I don't expect any fuel tanks to be ruptured and running around. But really it's just oil changes as far as the fluid, and the rest is, bilge pumps and actuators and fabrics, upholsteries, electronics. I don't foresee a tremendous amount of hazardous materials, just the routine oil changes.
Sure. Thank you for elaborating on that. All right. Jim asked, will we receive this PowerPoint presentation? Jim, we're happy to send you this presentation. We have it saved as PowerPoint. We have it as a PDF slide deck. If you'll email me, I'll jump back to my contact information briefly. You can either email me directly and I can send you the presentation, or if you'll send an email to info@urbandesignpartners.com, which is the contact address which you received the meeting registration from. If you'll send that address and email as well, we can send you our presentation. We'd be happy to. Okay, let's see, Eric asked, with all the other recently developed boat storage and retail shops on Brawley, what study of economic impacts, positive and negative, have the other locations generated? That sounds a lot like a question for Iredell County as well as the town of Mooresville to get into really the economic impacts of new development. I'm not sure that that's necessarily something that's studied. However, Will did mention this specific location and why it made sense for their business. Okay, Brian. Brian asked or mentioned the fence and shrubs go from Brawley to Oak Tree Road. Would there possibly be a plan to follow the last storage facility on Oak Tree? That would create more of a buffer to that residence. Sure, so if you can see my mouse on the screen beside this area that's designated open space, I believe, Brian, that's what you're talking about. So the 30-foot type A buffer would run along this property line all the way to the edge. Our plan here is to provide landscaping. I know we're showing this as open space and not specifying it as tree safe. Part of that is for utilities and pipes that would need to run to the stormwater control measure. We'd have to do a little bit of grading in this area, but our intent is to provide vegetation here because all internal storage must be screened from streets and public right of way. So we will have to provide dense vegetation in that area as well. How is this beneficial to the residents of the town? It seems to be overpriced service for the residents. Again, this is an existing business looking to continue operations within the town of Mooresville. I can't provide a whole lot more on that, unfortunately, Danielle. Megan?
We would just add it to our existing customer base that currently is already driving to our location, and this would be a more centralized location for everyone.
Sure, thank you. Megan, thank you for proposing this business to our community. I look forward to hearing all the details. Thank you, Megan. Happy to explain further. Feel free to give us a call or send an email. Chad, given the vehicle service repair nature of the business, will all service take place in a contained area consisting of oil, water, separator, triple basin to prevent potential contamination discharge? So all servicing and repair will have to take place internally to the proposed building. And I believe the latter part of that question kind of gets into some of what Will and Tatiana were discussing earlier with the hazardous chemicals. So those would have to be contained. There would have to be additional storage underneath the service areas to make sure that does not leach into the ground.
Yeah, we're very accustomed and familiar with this. The oil water separator will be a part of the construction project within the service department. And
Meaning if something were to escape the planned containment equipment and make it itself into a floor drain, that system is an oil water separator drain, so that oil would not then flow into a retention pond. I believe it's required, actually, anytime you do any service indoors, is to have that, just in case there is any type of discharge. You don't want it to contaminate any of the land, so it's just a different drain system that's inside the shop that already provides for that.
Great, thank you for that additional insight. John, looks like the landscape is below the level of Brawley. How much fill will be required? Thank you. Never mind, that comment was addressed with utilizing the natural grade of the site. John additionally said U-turns for a truck carrying a boat and trailer would slow down traffic. Again, 99.5+% of the boats and trailers coming to this site would be on a singular trailer, much like you would take to the boat ramp to go boating yourself. So this is not large tractor trailer traffic entering and exiting the site. And on average, the site can expect approximately 2 deliveries a week. So very low impact to the area. Let's see. I've got a direct question from Bill. What would prevent the person from leaving to turn off Brawley onto Oak Tree and then pull their U-turn at the top of Fernbrook? I think you're alluding to potentially leaving the site, exiting the site off of Brawley School Road, making a right onto Oak Tree Road, going up Oak Tree and then finding a U-turn. I can't say that there's nothing preventing it, but from a traffic standpoint wise, it doesn't make sense to go that far up a residential area for a U-turn. And again, these aren't tractor trailers. They have the capability to make a U-turn within the existing designated left-hand turn lanes along Brawley School Road. All right, Gail. Taking away the entrance on Oak Tree Road and moving open space into that area would enhance our Fernbrook development. So why not have it, you know, if the driveway at Oak Tree is something we can review further. We would definitely would prefer to have two means of ingress. We're okay with one means of egress to the site, but it assists with the flow of traffic for deliveries and vehicles reaching the service area. All right. Kathy, there is no boat access down Stutz Road. Would your boats be making U-turn at the Brawley School Road and Oak Tree? So that's a good question. Realistically, I'm not sure that vehicles would be able to exit the site out of at the Brawley driveway and reach that left-hand turn lane in time to turn. That'll totally depend on traffic volume at the specific time of the day. All right, Kent, will you light the park? Lost it. Will you light the park in the front? Is there 24-hour access to this area? So again, we haven't gotten into lighting plans at this point. The open space design still conceptual. However, it is a commitment in this rezoning space to provide improvements, to provide a pseudo mini park aesthetic at the corner of Brawley School and Oak Tree Road.
And yes, that would be available 24 hours. That wouldn't be closed off.
Yeah, the only block off would be to the driveways accessing the roads. The park would be open all the time.
Thank you for adding to that. Appreciate it. All right, let me keep going. Let's see. All right, so Bill asks, so the main reason for the new location is it's more convenient, getting boats to the lake, service with sales. What does it do for the concerned people on this call and the trips down Brawley to the lake, more slow traffic? So as we've touched on several times, this is a low impact trip generator. There are very few trips generated by this type of project. Whereas, you know, a commercial retail center could go here, a large box store, a auto sales store could go there right now and be developed today. However, you know, the petitioners are looking to relocate their existing business to better serve their customer base in the community, while, you know, while having minimal impacts to the area and trying to take as much of that into consideration through community meetings like this, you know, providing buffers to the existing residential areas, not allowing traffic to make a right turn onto Oak Tree and so forth. All right, Kristen, I've lived off of Brawley for over 20 years. I feel like business layout would not only be great for the area, but would be aesthetically pleasing. Traffic in the area is not an issue. And this doesn't seem like it would add any more of a hindrance as it's not a high volume business. Thank you. James, you state all service would be conducted indoors, but I'm not comfortable with that. That will always be the case, as expediency could overcome that, especially over time. What recourse does the community have if the business does not conform? James, that's a great question. So that is a requirement in the Unified Development Ordinance. If that ordinance is not followed, you can call town staff, specifically code enforcement, the planning department, and they could issue a notice of violation to the property owner. So that is not a a short-term requirement. That is an ongoing for the existing lifespan of the business that must be followed. But good question. Thank you for that.
And I would add that currently all service is done inside at our current facility.
Thank you, Will. Okay, Gail. I understand entrance from Oak Tree, but why not move service and showroom over to the right in place of open space? That open space would be at the entrance to Oak Tree, keeping, let's back up. I think I doubled up on myself. Understand the entrance. Why not move service? Okay, I think I see what you're saying here, Gail. Instead of having the open space at the corner of Brawley School and Oak Tree, shift buildings toward that area and have the open space at the rear of the site. So the service buildings, the smaller buildings are storage buildings. They're not service buildings. We're a little bit limited based on, where we can locate them, because we don't want to add additional impervious area. But for usability of the site, you also need to have the ability to access them internally. Shifting those buildings towards that corner makes internal access a little bit difficult. All right, Jay. Are Mastercraft boats deep hull type that creates wave making shore docks, destroying design? Correct me if I'm wrong. I understand boats to an extent. Mastercrafts are not deep hull. They're not deep V center consoles. They are classic lake boats.
Well, they are deep V, and they're used for skiing, tubing, wakeboarding, and surfing. And I think he is complaining about the surf waves that they generate. And yeah, that is those boats. We also sell Berkshire pontoons and Pathfinder fishing boats. So it's not exclusively Mastercraft, but yes, those are the same type boats. And there's about a dozen different manufacturers around the lake that produce that product, or retail that product rather.
Understood. Apologies for my ignorance, Will. Okay, let's see. Andy Crane, will you put in a right-hand turn lane prior to the Brawley turn-in? So that's something we could look at during driveway permitting. If a dedicated right-hand turn lane will be required. I'm not sure to that effect at this point, being that we're going through the rezoning still. Scott, how and where is the property served by water and sewer? So there's water and sewer along Oak Tree Road. I don't have a specific slide highlighting where those points are. However, there are existing utilities in the area that we would have to connect to for services. Lance, have you considered that a vehicle with a boat trailer attached cannot U-turn on Brawley returning eastbound? The U-turn, there's not a perfect answer for it. Aside, the majority of traffic coming to this area is a smaller trailer that should have sufficient movement capabilities to make that U-turn along Brawley School Road.
Yeah, and we'll just clarify, even the boats we get from the manufacturer right out of the plant, they come in mainly in single deliveries. So it is just like a resident would be towing their personal boat. It's the same type of arrival style. I think I'm just trying to make sure that people aren't imagining some sort of larger delivery vessel or vehicle delivering multiple boats at once. It is just like a private person would drive their personal boat as well. And again, about 2 a week is what we average, and that's about it.
Thank you for that clarification and additional info. All right, moving right along. Sue Reed, what are the measures for mosquito control for the water containment area? That's understandably a good question. And, it's shown as a blue area. It looks like a classic pond. That's not the case. This does not have to be full of water 24/7. We create that visual effect to give you an idea of what it is and what it's used for. However, there will not be water in this full time. Okay, let's see. Scott, how do you get the boats into the showroom floor? Where, if any, on the site will outside inventory boats on trailers be displayed, and will they be in some of the spaces identified as parking spaces? All right, we got a few questions to unpack there. All right, starting at the top, getting boats into the showroom floor. Will and Tatiana, if you're still off mute, are you able to see my mouse on the screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so boats, coming through could be unloaded in these laydown areas in front of the storage buildings. These buildings will have capability to store boats, of course. To access the showroom floor, the current proposal is to come up through the site to the side of the building. There are a few parking spaces. However, there's an area without parking spaces identified. There would be a large door at this area where boats could access, be brought to and taken from the showroom floor. I lost my question. Okay, where, if any, on site will outside inventory? So there will not be outside inventory displayed for sale. There will not be any boats along Brawley School Road. There will not be any boats along Oak Tree Road displayed for sale. All boats will be internal to the site and not visible from a public street, aside from what is going to be in the showroom. So again, these areas in front of storage could be lay down for boats coming off of trucks and trailers. But again, we're showing some screening beside this storage building. We will have to have sufficient screening so that none of those areas are visible from the public street. So no, boats will not be able to be parked in parking spaces. That goes back similar to an answer earlier. That's not allowed in the Unified Development Ordinance, so the town could enforce that if that takes place. Ryan, I skipped your question. I apologize. Ryan, we already have issues with non-residents using our community lake access points off of Fernbrook and Castle's Gate. How do you prevent your customers from doing the same? So private, I'm assuming this is, let's see, private access points. So private access points are private access points. When demoing boats, public access ramps would have to be utilized. Like Will mentioned earlier in the meeting, there's a public lake access area at Hager Creek, which is 5 miles from the site. It's about 10 minutes away, as well as McCrary Creek, which is, again, 5 miles from the site, about 10 minutes away, depending on traffic. So there is no intent to utilize any private or neighborhood organization owned facilities.
and I'll add that in regards, so our staff would never use that ramp, and our customers, they're going to be wanting to return to where they've originated. I don't see why necessarily a customer would take a boat from service and go launch it at a foreign ramp to them. They're going to take it back to where their home is.
Sure, thank you for that. And Ryan, I apologize for skipping over your question. All right, Stephanie, what obligations, if any, do the Dyers have to actually implement the described layout and open space, or are there no constraints? So the open space is a condition of approval. Going back to early on in the presentation, I touched at a high level on a conventional and a conditional rezoning petition. Since this is a conditional rezoning petition, That open space area is conditioned and agreed upon by the petitioners. And, should this rezoning be approved, it would be part of the approved plan. So when this goes to a land development stage, when we get into engineering the site, that is something that planning and zoning staff would look for and would be a requirement for this site to be built. Every condition of approval in a rezoning must be met at land development, or the site will not be developed. Now, if that's something that the petitioner decided they were not agreeable to later down the road, the entire site would have to be conditionally rezoned again. Those are all locked in as part of the approval documents. John asked, do you sell pontoons as well? And yes, there are pontoons for sale.
Yeah, the brand we represent is Berkshire.
Okay, Steve Hessler, is this facility for service only or sales and service? If for sales, will inventory be parked at this site? So we've touched on this a little bit, but happy to answer it again. This is a sales and service facility. The Dyer's existing business has two separate facilities, and a lot of the reason for the rezoning and the new development is to bring all of those to one site for the convenience of their customers. Inventory, will it be parked at this site? There will be a showroom where boats are visible from street level. However, as I previously mentioned, boats will not be displayed in front of the building for sale. All storage will have to be internal to the site and screened. Kathy, plans look good. Thank you, Kathy. Lee says, bought here 6 years ago, can't believe the unmitigated explosion of building, traffic, congestion, etc. I'm simply a firm believer that the quaint atmosphere is being ruined and a building moratorium should be implemented. I'm certainly entitled to that opinion. I appreciate you sharing that with us this evening. Brian, the property line actually goes to Fernbrook. When or if this project starts, will you clear the property line? Will you clear property line to property line, or will you leave some trees by Fernbrook, as this area is unusable to the business? Brian, another good question. So we have to provide the 30-foot type A buffer as part of rezoning and ultimate development approvals. It's required by the Unified Development Ordinance. We are committed to it via the site plan. The intent is to minimize impact in that area as much as possible. We do not want to mass grade the site. We want to leave as many of the natural trees as possible. We can utilize existing foliage in that type A buffer if it remains undisturbed. However, we are providing and committing to what is required in the ordinance with the 5 canopy, 5 understory, and 40 bushes per 100 linear feet. But absolutely, the goal is to keep as much natural foliage and minimize impact in that area. Mark asked how the site is going to be served with sewer, and touched on that a little bit earlier. There's sewer along Oak Tree Road. We would have to tap into that existing system with plans that would be approved by the town. Bill, something needs to be done to keep people leaving the business turning right onto Oak Tree. And so again, when we get into more detailed land development plans and start looking at driveway permitting, that driveway will be designed so that no left or right turn movement can be made onto Oak Tree Road. I know it does not appear that way currently. We're not showing a median or a 1-lane block for exiting traffic. However, Oak Tree Road, that driveway will be a right-in access only. Okay, John, how many boats arrived to your site when fulfilling your order? I've seen trailers carrying 6+ boats. Does your deliveries bring more than 1 boat at a time? So this was addressed. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I'm glad we were able to address that for you. Okay, Gail. Okay, Gail. Talking about moving the showroom to the right to open space to create a U in and out of Brawley. Take away any entrance oak tree, keep all traffic away from Fernbrook. Create a U. I'm not sure I completely follow you, Gail. Maybe you can, after we get through these questions, you can come off mute and try to describe what it is you're imagining or envisioning. If not, I'm happy to jump on a call with you after the meeting where we can look at the site plan, mark it up to try to better understand the vision that you have. Stephanie, do you currently service non-Mastercraft boats, or are you solely a Mastercraft servicer? If you service other boats, what percentage are currently Mastercraft?
So we'll take that question.
Yeah, we can service most makes and models of boats. There are a lot of similar components in these boats. I would say probably half of our business right now is Mastercraft specifically, but
We also have two mobile teams, so we have two, think of them like Sprinter vans, and we do a lot of dockside work. So a lot of our business is actually not even on the site itself. It's our team leaving in a regular vehicle and going to customers' docks and servicing their boats there. So, yeah, so if somebody has multiple watercraft or neighbors have other boats that aren't the same, brands as what we sell, we do service those often, but we do a lot of dock calls. As you can imagine, a lot of people who have boats on the lake don't have trailers either. So we do go to our customers often.
yeah, we didn't address that, and we probably should have, but a lot of the service work that we do is remote work. A lot of the routine maintenance, change out an impeller, change out a pump, or change the oil can actually be done dockside with these boats or in the customer's driveway if they have it on a trailer. We don't have to bring every boat in for every single thing it needs. The ones that are coming are needing the bigger jobs where something's not functioning right with electronics or seating or hinges or transmission or something like
Or
that.
upholstery, like, but we do, we do drive our team, our road teams go to Lake Wiley, they go down to all service all sides of the lake of Lake Norman. We dispatch quite a bit, actually every day they go out. So a lot of the work we do is not on site.
All right, thank you for providing some additional insight on that. Lance, have you tried doing a U-turn on Brawley with a boat trailer attached to a car? Excuse me. Personally, I've not. We can study turning movements with different vehicles. That's a very common practice when looking at driveway permitting as well as roadway extensions. So if we need to provide specific turning movements, that's something that we could absolutely look into for you. Judith asked, is this corner already annexed into Mooresville for tax purposes? Yes, Judith, excuse me. This property is annexed and it's under Town of Mooresville zoning. So let me go over to that slide. Not too far. Here you can see the site. It's conditionally zoned corridor mixed use CM within the town of Mooresville. It was annexed around 2001. So it is within the town limits. However, you can see a large portion of this area, the gray area, it still remains in Iredell County. Okay, Steve. The way Mooresville is building, someone is going to develop that site eventually. I'd rather have a local boat dealership than another shopping center like Harris Teeter on Williamson. Thank you, Steve. We agree, and we're trying to be as good of neighbors as possible and take everything into consideration when designing and ultimately, hopefully, developing this site. As I mentioned earlier, there are certain particular permitted uses in the existing zoning that could be developed by right, where they would not have this type of community meeting, community engagement. They would not have to go to the elected board or the planning board. They could just develop it, work directly with staff, and that's kind of it. And that's really the great thing about a rezoning and a conditional rezoning is we get to have these meetings, we get to have these conversations, looking at a site plan, and working to make this as harmonious with the existing community as possible. Eric, or maybe developed within current zoning regulations, still not understanding why the area should be rezoned. So that's a little bit of what I was just touching on. There's a lot of permitted uses by right. There's a lot of high traffic intensive uses permitted by right. This particular use is not allowed within the CM zoning district, which is the reason for the rezoning. John, are you planning to have restricted hours of delivery and pickup during rush hour? Will and Tatiana, can you assist with that one as well?
I think what I would just add is we do a lot of, so we do own trailers in the company and go pick up customers' boats, but our guys also get off work at 5. So they don't want to be on the road with picking up customers' boats during rush hours. They want to have already gotten back to the dealership, put everything away properly, secured, and they want to be able to get home as well. We're not a late business, and we also don't open super early. So they're
It's an actual 9 to 5 business.
I know.
Yeah.
So I think this the tendency of the team itself would support the concerns here, and it isn't an overextended hour business by nature.
Right, as always, thank you for your additional insight in answering these questions. Kathy, there is a public boat ramp down Brawley School Road, and Bill answered your question. There is one to the north that's about 5 miles away as well. How many boats are serviced on a daily basis? I think a lot of that's going to depend on the season. As the Dyers have mentioned, summertime is their peak season. So they may be doing, more servicing on a daily, weekly basis then than they would during fall or winter seasons.
I would just add during the school year is, a lot of that time is during the winter or when the water's too cold to get in. So some of the bigger jobs that take longer are scheduled during those months. So again, reduced traffic during school year, the colder months of the school year. And just because the customers don't want to not be without their, they don't want to be without boat during the summer. So, but as far as, how many, it just varies. It's very much a seasonal business.
Thank you, thank you. All right, Christina, you've given, let's see, U-turns. Okay, so Christina, bringing up again the traffic and the U-turns, noting that professional drivers may be able to do this, but the everyday person may not be able to. And that's where not everyone has to bring their boat to be serviced directly at the center. As the Dyers mentioned, they can come to a dock, they can come to someone's home and service the boats. That can mitigate some of that traffic in the area as well. Gail, following up the above, I understand you have delivery 2 boats per week. This would affect traffic on Oak Tree turn or no turn would be appreciated. Understood. We can again look into that design that you had mentioned. If you'd like to connect offline, I'd be happy to talk with you. John, appreciate answering the questions. This was helpful. Design looks like it would be a nice upgrade. John, thank you for joining this evening. Thank you for your feedback. Danielle, will you sell other boating products that would draw more traffic, acting as a retail store?
Not broadly. We would sell, sure, we have a parts department, so somebody, I guess, could come in their car and want to buy a specific part for their boat and not have us put it on. And then, we do sell life jackets and water skis and stuff like
surfboards,
like that, but not like the Boaters Warehouse up the street, not to that level of detail of products where people are coming in for gas cans and, grease and nuts and bolts and, we're more of selling the toys, the lifestyle.
Yeah, Boder's Warehouse does a great job with what they do for retail, and we're not looking to do anything like that. Our retail is very limited. We're just gonna stay at our core business model.
Right, thank you. Stephanie, God forbid the Dyer shop goes belly up. Can this property then be sold as CC or does it revert to CN? And Eric wants to know that as well. So Stephanie, should the business close in the future, the property was developed under a specific use. For that use to change, the property would have to go back through this conditional rezoning to add either either add additional permitted uses or B, change the zoning district. Bill is not asking about people turning from the lot onto Oak Tree, but rather about people leaving from Brawley, then turning right onto Oak Tree, then pulling the U-turn at the top of Fernbrook, which would be so much easier to do. Bill, we can't account for that type of movement with the site. I don't think that's going to be a likely movement. It makes more sense to me to make the turn on Brawley. But we can only mitigate off-site so much, unfortunately. James, once this property is rezoned, is that permanent? Worried about the long-term impact if the business on-site changes. So James, that's kind of what I was getting to earlier, is the specific nature of a conditional rezoning gives some insurances of how that property is going to be used. Again, if the business is to go away or the site is to change uses, they would have to go back through this conditional rezoning, have additional public engagement, go back before the planning and elected boards for an ultimate approval. So Eric, what is the value if the property is rezoned and the business fails? You have the guarantee and commitment that this is the use that is going to be operated on site. It could not be, modified into a, let's say, brewery or a large retail establishment without going through the rezoning process. So that it gives those guarantees. Gail, how many in-house services do you do per week? It would seem to me that the busy season of servicing would be spring to get boats prepared and fall winterizations when school is in session. I would think the servicing traffic would far outweigh new sales. So that sounds more like an operational question.
We do a lot of winterizations and summerizations at docks. I mean, we do a lot of dispatching for those types of events. It's more convenient for the customers that way, and easier for us to be able to get to multiple people at one time.
Yeah, though I wish that it was a flood of people coming at the business every day. The reality is it's just not that pace of business at this type of business. For service, we can get a handful a day that actually would come to us, and that would be a busy day. Sales, the same, handful a day, and that would be considered a busy day. Some days they may be very low, and some days we may have a tremendous amount of business, but all of our guys are on the road in the 3 mobile service vehicles all around different communities around the lake. And so our busyness is not necessarily felt at the site in that regard. It's a pretty low volume business, which I would hope would be satisfactory for the traffic concerns of what we're trying to do at this site as opposed to some other uses.
Right, thank you for the additional insight. Danielle, would this rezoning lead to annexing the rest of Brawley School Road? Absolutely not. Annexing and rezoning can only be requested by the property owners. So this rezoning petition will not affect any other parcel, their status on zoning or annexation. Kathy, 1 or 2, I know the ones at McKendree, it looks like this is back to the public accesses. So there is one, Hager Creek is off McKendree, and then McCrary Creek is another public access about 5 miles away, located off of River Highway 150, I do believe. Paint fumes, Lance, all servicing has to be internal to those buildings, so there would not be any external fumes. Paul.
We don't
We
paint,
don't paint
we don't paint
boats.
boats anyways.
Oh, but even better, there will be no fumes whatsoever. There will be no paint. Thank you for that clarification. Paul, someone will develop the site. Having a high-end, low-volume business with a nice-looking building seems like the best-case scenario. Thank you, Paul. Kathy, my latest question was answered. Great. Happy to answer these questions. I appreciate you asking them. We're happy to give you the feedback. John, since there's a lot of concern for making a U-turn onto eastbound Brawley, have you considered increasing the size of the U-turn area so it make it? Sure. So that's a difficult question, John. Looking at the existing public right-of-way, how much space is there? Are there any road widening projects? Then you get into the question of, is it a town maintained road versus a state maintained road? So there's a lot of factors that go into that. And unfortunately, that's really not feasible as a single business in the area. Brian, who can I reach out to about a possible plan change? Maybe create a 45-degree turn at the last storage facility, having the fence go directly to Oak Tree, paralleling the last storage building. All right, give me 1 second, Brian, and I will pull up my contact information. Brian, feel free to shoot me an email at your convenience, or give me a call. If I'm unavailable, please leave me a voicemail. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Happy to talk through this with you and relay this information. Yeah, we don't want you to lose the large trees. We want to keep that foliage as much as possible. Lance, will all of the boats from the current location be transferred to this location? So my understanding is existing inventory would relocate. Will, Tatiana, if you can speak to that briefly?
Yes, the intent is to move. We're currently in 2 different locations. We want to be in 1 location, so we would move everything we have, the other 2, to this site. And just to comment to Brian, we hear you and we understand, and we as well want to keep as much of the trees there as possible. So I'm sure we can talk more offline.
All right, Christina, I appreciate the information that you all put together. I think you're receiving a lot of feedback because so many of us residents are very frustrated with the traffic at Lake Norman Elementary School and how little has been done to address it. I agree with some of the other people who have mentioned that this seems to be a low volume operation that would be better than some alternatives that might be developed instead of this. Christina, we understand the frustrations and we're trying to, impact that as minimally as possible. I appreciate you joining us this evening. I appreciate your feedback. John, thank you for this session. We appreciate it. Happy to provide any additional feedback as necessary. Again, feel free to contact me. My email and phone number are on the screen. Eric, can we connect offline? Eric, I'm happy to talk through the ins and outs of rezonings with you offline. Again, feel free to shoot me an email. We can set up a call to kind of discuss that process. And if necessary, we can reach out to the town and set up a call with Erica Martin, the planning director with the town of Mooresville, to discuss existing uses in the rezoning nature. Thad, nicely done. Site appears to be well thought out and would be a welcome visual upgrade on the Brawley Peninsula. Thank you, Thad. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for your comment. Lance, how many of those boats will be located outside? So again, the only boats that will be visible from street level will be the boats located within the showroom. Any outside boats will be located internally to the site. Jump back over to our rendered plan.
And below street
Yeah,
level.
a lower elevation
That's
and also
a
blocked
great
by the
point.
storage buildings.
They'll be blocked by these storage buildings. There will be buffers provided throughout the site to prevent any sort of street view of the boats. So boats could be located outside in these internal areas. If it'll let me mark up, you can see on the screen kind of where we're looking. There could be boats internal to the site, but you will not be able to see them from street level. All right. I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat.
See, Kathy has a hand raised.
Hey, Kathy, did you have an additional question? I think let's see. Don't see a hand raised anymore. I thought I had seen Kathy mention earlier that we had answered her questions. All right, well, I'll give it just another minute to see if any other questions come through our chat box. If you'd like to hang around for a few minutes, feel free. At this point, we are concluded with our community meeting presentation. I want to thank you for joining us and sticking around this evening, taking some times out of your week to learn about what's being proposed at this site and asking a lot of great questions. Andy,
Yes.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, we were saying thank you as well for attending.
Yes.
All right, Andy asked, how do we get this presentation again? Andy, send me an email. My email address is on the screen. I would be happy to send you a copy of this presentation. There, Paul from our office again mentioned that we post our presentations online at our website at urbandesignpartners.com, and you just click on the rezoning tab. And give it a few days. We should have that up by the middle of next week. You're very welcome, Andy. All right, well, with that being said, I will call our meeting adjourned. It looks like it is 7:36 p.m. on this Tuesday evening. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to contact us with any additional questions. My name is Nolan Groce. I'm with Urban Design Partners. Have a great evening. Take care.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.